Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Welcome to our forum discussion for today. First of all, I would like to thank all the panel members for joining this forum discussion today. Without any further ado, I would like to call on Miss Adriana Farhani binti Fazrul Kamal, a student from UITM Dungun, Terengganu, to answer the first question. Our topic that we will discuss today is about distance learning and work, effectiveness or not. As we all know, we had to go through distance learning and work because of the pandemic COVID-19 and still doing it. As a student, do you believe that distance learning and work is still effective? What do you think?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I believe that a lot of students in Malaysia are facing distance learning right now. Not to forget to the people who are facing distance working too. Some people think that it is better to do distance learning and work, but some are not. Firstly, I would like to elaborate some introductions about distance learning and work. Greenberg 1998 defines contemporary distance learning as a planned teaching or learning experience that uses a wide spectrum of technologies to reach learners at a distance and is designed to encourage learner interaction and certification of learning. Tester and Lisner 1999 say the term distance learning has been applied to many instructional methods. However, its primary distinction is that the teacher and the learner are separate in space and possibly time. For me, I agree that distance learning and work have a lot of advantages. This is because, based on my research on this issue, Gilliver, Randall, and Pop 1998 discussed the effect of online courses on learning and found higher learning effectiveness of the experiment group with web-based learning. In the meantime, Shiratuddin 2001 studied 169 college students with lecturing and online learning and also discovered the higher learning effectiveness of the online learning group. In another study conducted by Uri et al. 1995 proved the higher learning effectiveness of the matched group than the individual group. There are a lot of factors in learning effectiveness. When 2009 indicated that learners are preferring abstract concepts in passively observed learners appear to have higher learning effectiveness. Hence, I believe that there are a lot more advantages that people can get from distance learning and work. However, I also think that distance learning and work is not effective at some point, but I'm sure that distance learning and work has a lot of advantages rather than disadvantages.
Thank you, Miss Adriana Farhani, for the explanation that distance learning and work are effective. I believe all the explanation from Miss Adriana Farhani have gone through a lot of research. Now, I would like to ask the second question to Ahmad Rashidi bin Rosli, a student from UITM Dungun as well. As the second panel for this forum discussion, as we all know that people already start doing distance learning for almost 2 years. Some of them enjoy it happily and some of them suffer hurtfully. From your perspective as a student, what do you feel after being through distance learning and do you think this situation is a good idea for students?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Ahmad Hafiz. As for me as a student, there are few points from my research that I did from indianeducation.net, where the author is Nashita Abram Bejish. To do or not to do, that is a question that most of students are pondering their feeling on continue their studies through distance learning. It is because the mixed feeling happen due to the pros and cons of distance learning. A few pros about this that students feel they can save money. A fee of distance education degrees may be more affordable than the regular on-campus degrees. Next, students feel they can pursue a job along their study due to this pandemic crisis. Students do not want to burden their family, so it can help them financially while they are study distance. Lastly, students can study whenever and wherever to the flexible space. Students do not need to start in the classroom. They can study at the garden, living room, or at the comfortable own bed. Irrespectively of whether students are morning light or are night owl, they can choose the optimum time to study whenever they think they are productive the best. And the con from this is, firstly, chance of distract is high, with no faculty around or face-to-face interaction and no classmate that can help them with a consistent reminder about panic assessment. And the chance of getting distracted are losing track of deadline are high. Lastly, hidden costs. Although the cost of distance education program is cheaper than regular program, there are hidden costs involved. For example, laptop and internet connection. So, from this mixed feeling, is it a good idea? It's 100% depend of the student capability. Some of them success happily, and not everyone survive in the battle of distance learning. Some of them fail hurtfully. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad Rashidi. What a great explanation from you. I believe that distance learning can be very effective not just for the student, but also to the people around them. Moving on to the next question, I would like to ask Ms. Ayuatira. As we know, the outbreak of the COVID-19 has affected the majority of people on the earth. This pandemic also, of course, has an impact on working people, especially since a lot of premises need to be shut down in order to prevent the transmission of the virus. As a result, they opting for distant work or working from home. So, Ms. Ayuatira, as you are an officer and have experience of working from home, what do you think are the challenges in working from home?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Hafiz. It is a good question actually. I will be lying if I say there is no problem when working from home. If we look at it from one perspective, it does benefit the workers as they can stay at home, no need to travel, and can save time working. However, if we look at it from another perspective, there are actually many challenges that the worker itself needs to deal with. So to answer your question, I will refer to the article that I have read before by Nurul Nadia from Multimedia University. Based on facts from the United States National Study of Changing Workforce, or NSCW by Halpern, studied how time-bending painting rules can enhance health, lessen stress, and save money. However, despite the benefits, the employees, including me, have a lot of concerns. Firstly, falling into slackness. According to Visual 2016, he said that the timetable for working has become more flexible and the workers can set up their own timetable, which is actually good for them. However, it will result in the workers delaying their work time and also not taking their work seriously until it reaches the deadline. This is actually not a good habit since each time is precious. Second concern that arises is the lack of the competitive spirit in working. Lack of human interaction and communication with co-workers and the boss dampens the competitive spirit and may impair employee productivity. Because the office is a location where employees may interact and meet new people, it may be the ideal approach to get away from stress at home and vice versa. Unfortunately, those who are working at home may not be able to find a way out, and thus resulting in people not having the high spirit to finish their tasks. Last but not least, the concern from the perspective of the employer also needs to be looked at. According to Harper 2005, the increase in work flexibility and option to work from home has led to increase in operating costs such as installing hardware, software, and telecommunications infrastructure. This problem is actually not good for employees' professional career development as there is lack of communication. The quality of work decreases, lack of supervision on work, and so on. Therefore, even though there are a lot of benefits when doing distance learning, we can never overlook the problems. We must take note of this possible problem and take precautions so that when it does happen to ourselves, we can overcome the challenges more easily. That's all.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Ayuatira, for your excellent response. Now, I understand more about the challenges faced by the working people. Next question. I would like to ask Mr. Amirul, can you elaborate about parents' perspective on how distance learning affects young children during COVID-19 class suspension?
Thank you, Mr. Hafiz. I'm glad that I could share my opinion and extensive reading about the issue. we look at the perspective of parents. My own experience as a working person and parents for three children, many parents were stressed about being sure their kids attended every Zoom morning meeting. Parents who work from home or in the office must arrange childcare and support their children's distance learning. Parents are now trying to juggle many roles at once and feel pressure to spend more time with their kids, teaching them while also working from home. Parents will naturally face many challenges and issues if not properly trained and prepared. According to the article that I researched, writing by Eva Ying Hong Lau from University of Hong Kong, a recent study found that parents who report highest levels of difficulties in supporting children learning than before the pandemic were found to be more stressed, Spinelli 2020. Next, according to the article, the percentage of parents feeling dissatisfied with learning during class suspension were higher among those without online learning than those offer online learning, with primary school parents without online learning being the group with the highest percentage of dissatisfaction. The highest distance learning to address their children's learning needs while staying at home. More primary school parents were dissatisfied with their children's learning than kindergarten parents regardless of whether school offer online learning. In response to the pandemic, it is important to provide appropriate support to parents. School needs to communicate with parents to find out what kind of support is needed by parents during the class suspensions. The government should also provide guidelines to ensure that the content of distance learning meets with educational requirements while not overburdening families and students. Last but not least, future research should examine how various school and family factors affect the effectiveness of children's learning during the class suspensions. How about you, Mr. Hafiz? Do you think working from home will work during this pandemic time in the future?
Oh, thank you so much for the explanation, Mr. Amiro. Now I understand more about the distance learning and working. And thank you again for the question. Yeah, I did some research too before we did our forum discussion today. I'm also glad that I can be a part of this discussion. I would like to share with all of you about the evidence from the Chinese experiment that is based on the employees working from home. In the bracket WFH, it is reported that home working led to a 13% performance increase, of which 9% was from working more minutes per shift, fewer breaks and sick days, and 4% from more calls per minute, attributed to a quieter and more convenient working environment. Home workers also reported improved work satisfaction and their attrition rate halved, but their promotion rate conditional on performance fell. Due to the success of the experiment, Ctrip rolled out the option to WFH to the whole firm and allowed the experimental employees to reselect between the home and office. Interestingly, over half of them switched, which led to the gains from WFH almost doubling to 22%. This highlights the benefits of learning and selection effects when adopting modern management practices like WFH. Let's move on to our last panel, Dr. Aisha. Thank you so much for joining our forum discussion today. I am informed that you have been experienced as a lecturer for about 10 years, but the end of the those but the end of those 2 years is definitely not something you normally go through as a lecturer compared to the previous 8 years, since distance learning has been implemented in those 2 years in Malaysia. So I would like to know your opinion on distance learning from the perspective of a lecturer or a teacher.
Thank you for having me here. I am honored for being here and having this discussion. I truly believe that the lecturer's responsibility is not so much in the transmission of the knowledge in distance learning. According to Bukina, MMSHS Web of Conference, active independent work of the lecturer is an important part of innovative online learning. The lack of continual face-to-face interaction with the lecturer, which forces the student to develop their own educational process, is an aspect of learning in a digital educational environment. Therefore, the role of the lecturer is no longer only focused on the transfer of knowledge, but in the organization of cognitive activity and the direction of creative activity of the student. In the, In the digital educational environment, the lecturer's activities are varied. To work in such an educational environment, a lecturer must learn new types of professional activities and duties that he was not previously familiar with. For example, the e-learning courses created and author, the lecturer as the educational process organizer, the organizer of joint activities of students, and more. Hence, the roles of a lecturer in a digital educational environment are similar to those of a lecturer in traditional education, with the exception of implementation details. In addition, based on the result of survey, the following are named as the optimal ways of educational interaction with the lecturer. First, webinar. It is 46.4%. Forum, 39.1%. Video services such as Open Meetings and Skype, 32.2%. Practical work presented in digital form where it is with a feedback from the lecturer, 29.5%. Individual consultations, 30.6%. A combination of tools such as screen translation, group chat, and audio conference. Join documents in Google Documents, 41.5%. And the last one is email, 13.7%. Thus, as for me, this has provided an opportunity to explore something new for myself in order to be a more efficient and successful person. Moreover, the technologies that have come into existence now greatly facilitates me as a lecturer to deliver learning to my students well. That's all.
Great explanation from Dr. Aisha. Thank you so much. That is it for the first round of our forum discussion. I do believe that this discussion can give a lot of information and benefits to other people out there. Let us move on to the second round. Now, I would like to ask another question to Miss Adriana Farhani as our first panel for today. Do you think that the online learning should be normalized for the future?
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad Hafiz. I do think that distance learning and work should be normalized for the future because, as we all know, distance learning and work have been practiced since a long time ago in the past. Some people have already normalized distance learning and work in their life. Some people too have experience in distance learning in their student life and continue distance working in their working life. With the technology that we have right now, I'm sure a lot of people, including the students, have at least one handphone. Electronic learning covering online learning, which allows learners to have access for educational content and have one-way or two-way communication with other learners and instructors through computer networks, intranet, internet, and www, provides quick, easy, and flexible access for all kinds of content through digital devices such as CD-ROMs, DVDs, computers, and mobile phones. A study from Keegan 2002, mobile learning started to become an education sector with the rapid increase in the numbers of mobile telephones. This shows that a lot of people use their mobile phone to study and do distance learning. Bowman and Wood 2003, Lever Duffy et al. 2003 also stated that